You taping? Okay. Okay, good morning. Masechet Pesahim, Mem Chet. Amoud Aleph. Big lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 big lines. Last 2 words. Amar Rami Bar Chama. I'll just give you a little recap of what we're talking about. In our Mishnah, we said that if it comes out Pesach, yeah, our Mishnah, which was a few pages ago, and you have dough, and the dough became tameh, you have a problem, because you need to take challah, but the challah cannot be eaten, because it's tameh. If you take challah, and if you take the challah and you let it sit and rise, it will become chametz. You can't cook it, because it can't be eaten. The permission of cooking on Yom Tov is only what you're allowed to eat. So how do you get around this problem? So there's a machloket, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. You gotta hold on to this. Rabbi Eliezer says, no problem, you cook the challahs first, and then you separate the challah. Now imagine you have a lot of breads, and one of them you're gonna give challah at the end. We don't know which one. So you're cooking right now, we're gonna see why you're allowed to cook. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says to do. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, there's no problem of separating challah right away from the get-go, because if it's going to come chametz, it's not your problem. Torah says, lo yira'eh licha chametz. Not my chametz. It's Hashem's chametz, not my problem. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, bake everything and then separate the challah. And according to Rabbi Yeshua, take the challah, and if it comes chametz, not your problem. That's what we said. Then we went to a whole nother machloket. And the machloket was Rabba Rab Chizda. What's called hu'in. Hu'in means since. Today's Yom Tov, I finished eating. Tomorrow's Shabbat, I'm allowed to continue to cook food, or I'm not allowed to continue to cook food. Meaning, if I cook food, I'm cooking for nobody to eat. And it's Yom Tov, that's asur. And that's what Rab Chizda says. Or Rabba says, no, hu'in means, since a guest could come and show up and eat my food, so now when I'm cooking, I'm not cooking for no reason. I'm cooking for that eventual imaginary guest that could show up. So far, so good? Yeah. So now we say on our Gemara, Amar Rabbi Bar Chama, Hadi Rab Chizda ve'Rabba machloket Rabbi Eliezer ve'Rabbi Yeshua. Really, the machloket that we saw of Rab and Rab Chizda, we can actually source it in the Mishnayot of Rabbi Eliezer and Rab Chizda. What we're talking about cooking from today, Friday, to Shabbat, from Shabbat to Friday to Shabbat, it's the same thing as what they thought about separating the challah. How does it work? The Rabbi Eliezer savar amrinan hu'in. The Rabbi Yeshua savar lo amrinan hu'in. How does that work? When I separate when I have 10 challahs, and one of them I'm going to end up giving to the Kohen, I'm baking a bread that's nobody's going to eat. Because all this dough is tameh. And I'm going to take, and I'm making into 10 little buns, but one of the buns I'm going to give to the Kohen. He's going to have to burn it. But after I bake it, that means I'm baking something no one's gonna eat. Why are you allowed to do that? Because who said it's this one? Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this one. You don't know which one. This bread you're cooking, you're not allowed to cook it. No, maybe I'm gonna eat that one. And if I wanted, I could tell you what I could do. I could bake 10 and break a small piece out of each one. I don't need to give one challah. I'm allowed to give one challah. So since I could do it in a permissible way, even if I'm gonna give a one full challah, that's where it's allowed. That's why Rabbi Yeshua says bake it. You're good to go by baking, and for sure you won't have chametz. And Rabbi Yeshua says no, there's no hu'in. You can't say that. Once you have 10 pieces of bread over here, and one bread you're not going to be eating, so you just cook something that's not allowed to be eaten. That's what it says. That's what the Gemara is proposing. That's really the machloket of Rabba and Rab Chizda. The Gemara says, Amar Papa din madkan no kamar Rabbi Eliezer. Actually, maybe it's two different, it's not at all the same. Rabbi Eliezer will say, bake the breads when it comes to matzah, when it comes to the challah, and he won't say it when it comes to our case of Yom Tov to Shabbos. Damrinan huin, ela de beidna de ka'ayne de tanura, korcha de vechada chazranen de. When I'm cooking them, says Rabbi Eliezer, each one of the breads I could actually choose. It depends on me. It depends on me saying, I'm going to eat bread A, bread B, matzah gimel, matzah dalet. I'm allowed to do that. It's up to me. So that's why I'll say hu'in. Aval hacha dida ochin hu dechaze lidide lo chaze. Ema achenami dino amrinan hu'in. But here, when it comes to Yom Tov, you got to say if, since. Since what? Since a guest is going to come. And what if a guest doesn't come? It's not in your power. So you can't say necessarily that Rabba and that Rabbi Eliezer goes with Rabba, because maybe the Ho'il of Rabba is different than the Ho'il of Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rav Shisha bered Rav Aide v'din malohi ad kano kama Rabbi Yeshua hatam delo amrinan Ho'il ela diika chada delo chazia lidide. Maybe when Rabbi Yeshua said he doesn't let you cook, he doesn't let you do the bread, you know why? Because at the end of the day, there's going to be 10 breads breaked, and one of the breads will not be eaten. One bread will not be eaten. Nobody's going to eat it. But here, when it comes to cooking from Yom Tov to the next day, at the end of the day, maybe the food will be fully eaten. There will be no food that will not be eaten. I'll repeat that one more time. Rabbi Eliezer says, bake your 10 breads. You know why? There's a problem with that. One of the breads won't be eaten. One of the breads is going to go in the fire. So, and Rabbi Yeshua says, no, don't bake them. Could we say that this machloket depends on the machloket of Rabbi Rav Chizda of Hu'il? What's Rabbi Rav Chizda of Hu'il? Today's Yom Tov. I'm allowed to cook for tomorrow? Says Rabbi, yeah, because maybe a guest is going to come. Hu'in. Since a guest is going to come. And Rabbi Chizda says, no, there's no Hu'in. Can we pair Rabbi with Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua with Rabbi Chizda? Can we do that? Seemingly yes. Hu'in. Let's say that again. Hu'in. Since I'm taking, you understand what it is? I have 10 breads. I have dough. The dough is tummy. So I need to give challah to the Kohen. The Kohen can't eat it. It's tummy. So if I separate it, and here Kohen, don't eat it, throw it in the garbage. But can you bake it? Can I bake it? You can't bake it because you're not allowed to eat it. So if I take my dough, like you usually do, I take my dough, I take a piece of the Kohen, big problem. If he lets it rise, it's going to come chametz. If he cooks it, he's cooking something which is not allowed to be eaten. So what do? So says Rabbi Eliezer, no problem. Take the dough, make 10 buns, make one big challah, cook it, then break a piece, give it to the Kohen. Yeah, but when you take 10 buns, at the end of the day, you cook something nobody's going to eat. You're right. But since I could eat it, because I could give this one. Yeah, but maybe you're not going to eat this one. Maybe give this one, give this one. I could always say since, so that maybe that's why it's allowed. The same way Rabbi said, since a guest could come, today's Yom Tov, we're finished the Suda. I need to now cook foods. I need to now cook foods for tomorrow, but I'm not going to eat it today. So you're cooking for now, which is not going to be eaten. Yeah, but since a guest could come, maybe it's going to be for today. So you see, since I could eat any one of the broths, since a guest could come, can we say it's the same? The Gemara says no, maybe not. You know why not? Says Rav Papa. Why not? It's because maybe it's different. When Rabbi Eliezer says hu'in, when Rabbi said hu'in, you know why? When Rabbi Eliezer said you're allowed to cook the breads, it's because it's up to me the decision. I could actually choose to say I'm not going to eat this one. I'm going to eat this one. It's in my it's in my power. It's in my hands. But is it up to me if a guest is going to come? It's not up to me. So maybe Rabbi Eliezer won't say the ho'il of Rabbah. And also Rabbi Yeshua says you can't cook the breads. You know why? Because maybe at the end of the day you're going to have one bread which is going to go in the fire. You ended up cooking something under the fire. But if I cook food and if a guest come, the food will be fully eaten. Nothing's going to go in the fire. Nothing's going to be burnt. Maybe he would accept it, that he accepts the hu'il. Therefore, we cannot necessarily say that the hu'il of Rabbi Eliezer is the hu'il of Rabbah and the hu'il of Rabbi Yeshua is the hu'il of Rabbi Chizda.
Isn't there, can we use a sense in every situation in life in general? There's always going to be a sense. It's easy to find a sense on everything. So the sense, does it become a klal? Or does it...
For Rabbah, it becomes a klal.
For him?
Yeah.
So you have sense in every situation in life?
Yeah, and each one we have to say if there's a real valid hu'il, there is. And he uses it, you see him across the board. Use it here, he uses it here, he uses it across the board. Since I could, you're burning Gita Nashe on Shabbos, on Yom Tov. Yeah, but since I could use the fire for myself, he's always saying that. In Yom Tov, and when it comes to these things. The Gemara continues, Amrua, you're going to see an interesting word today. Amrua Rabbanan Kamedi Rabbi Yirmiyah. So this whole discussion between, do we say hu'il, we don't say hu'il, we're in Memchet. Rabbanan said it in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Yirmiyah kibla, Rabbi Zera lo kibla. This logic to say that Rabbi Eliezer goes with Rabba and that Rabbi Yeshua goes with Rabbi Chizda, or the opposite, because Rabba goes with Rabbi, because Rabba's later, Rabba goes with Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Chizda will go with Rabbi Yeshua, and so Rabbi Yirmiyah, not Rabbi Zera Kima. So two chavrusas. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, I like it. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, I don't accept it. It's not true. Amani Rabbi Yirmiyah li Rabbi Zera milta de kashyalan ve'atya kama shani b'may pligi Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shua ashta amrua mishmeh de gaba rabba v'lo nikble. 1 second. We're here fighting. We didn't understand this Mishnah for years. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua, we couldn't understand what's the reason to Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. We couldn't figure it out. Doesn't make sense. Now all of a sudden somebody's going to come and give us a pshat. You're not going to accept it? Amar le echia kamle. How can I accept the pshat? The Tanina. Amar le Rabbi Yeshua lidvarecha harehu over mishum lo taseh kol menacha. You know, it doesn't have to do with ho'id. You know why? Because we have our Mishnah. And what does our Mishnah say? If you remember, Rabbi Eliezer says bake it, and Rabbi Yeshua says don't bake it. And Rabbi Yeshua says, again, what does he say? That's not chametz which is a problem. Only chametz that you is the problem, not chametz that Hashem owns. So in a braita, it says that Rabbi Yeshua told to Rabbi Eliezer, it says, how could you bake it? It says, lo taseh kol menacha. Really, they change it over here. It says, kol menacha no yasabem. There's a part that says, you're not to do menacha on Yom Tov. How are you allowing to do menacha on Yom Tov? You're cooking bread which is going in the garbage. Vishatik. And Rabbi Eliezer was quiet. V'ita leimale tamadidi mishum hu'in. And he really should say, my reason is hu'in. One more time. Rabbi Eliezer says, bake it. Rabbi Yeshua says, don't bake it. And what we're proposing now, the reason Rabbi Eliezer is hu'in. Hu'in is, you know why I'm allowed to bake it? Because I could throw it, because I could choose to eat one of these breads. You're breaking a bread that's going to go in the garbage. Yeah, but if I wanted, I could eat that bread. If I wanted, I could have eaten it and put another one in the garbage in the fire. Now that's fine and nice, but Rabbi Zera doesn't accept it. You know why Rabbi Zera says you don't accept it? You know why? Because we have another discussion between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Yeshua says, how could you bake? You're doing melacha on Yom Tov. And he didn't answer. Rabbi Eliezer didn't answer. If it would be true that his reason is ho'in, he should say, Tamaridi mishum hu'in. I'm allowed to. It's not melacha. It's hu'in. And you see that Rabbi Eliezer didn't answer that. If I'm fighting with David Mann, I say I have a svara against you, and I beat him TKO, and he doesn't answer, so I'm right. If he had a rebuttal, he should say, no, I'm not doing melacha. I have hu'in. So that's what Rabbi Zera doesn't accept it. Amari Rabbi Yirmiyah Rutamich. Oh yeah, I have another braita. Haditanya bibraita Amaro Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Elazar lidvarecha harei hu over mishum bad yira'eh bani matzeh v'shatikle. Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you that it's not a problem. He doesn't answer. Sometimes you have a discussion between two rabbanim and he doesn't answer, even though he has an answer. You know, because I'm going to answer you another time. I don't have a head for you right now. You know why? Because in the same discussion with Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Eliezer says, you're not going to bake it. You're going to go to Kohen HaEz. It's going to become chametz. You just made chametz on Pesach. And you see that Rabbi Yeshua didn't answer. V'shatik le achanami de lo ader le hakam yader le b'masnisin. You know why he didn't answer him? Because he answered him in a Mishnah. He answered him in another Mishnah. In the Mishnah he said, "Ditnan zlo zeu chamed shemuzarin alav mishum bad yira'eh bad yimatzeh." You see that he was quiet in the Braita, he answered in the Mishnah. And you see that he was quiet here in this Braita, but he answered in another place which we don't have. So silence is not a proof. In other words, we're trying to prove, does Rabbi Eliezer hold of Hu'in? And we're trying to say, Rabbi Zera says no, because when we answered him, we asked him a question, he didn't answer, I hold of Hu'in. That's nothing. You know why? Because once Rabbi Eliezer challenged Rabbi Shua, says, Rabbi Shua, how are you not going to bake the bread? You're going to get chametz of Pesach. And you see that Rabbi Shua didn't answer. You know why I answer? Because we have a Mishnah where he answered. The Mishnah says, it's not my chametz, it's God's chametz. I'm not over. So the same way Rabbi Yeshua didn't answer to Rabbi Eliezer in one situation, because he answered another place. I don't have to answer all the time. You can ask me the same question. You ask me once, I give you the answer. You're not going to ask me every time the question. Next time, refer to what I told you last time. I don't have time for this. So maybe Rabbi Eliezer also answered somewhere else, and we don't have it here. Some mechilta, some braita, which now always got into the book. It could be answered in another place. It's not a problem. Silence is not an expression of admission. So the Gemara says, Tanya, Tanya, and that's all. So that's where we end up. Tanya, Rebbe Omer Alechak Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yitzchak Omer Alechak Rabbi Keben Betera. So really, what's the Alecha? Machloket. Rebbe says Alechak Rabbi Eliezer, and by the way, it is the Alecha. The Alecha is like Rabbi Eliezer. We say Hu'im. You're allowed to bake the breads. Go ahead, break it, take a piece off in Pesach. And by the way, that's what they have to do on we're all Tamimet. We're going to see in the Rashi in the next page. We're all Tamimet. Did you ever give to the Kohen your truma? You never gave it to him. What do you do with it? Your wife takes it, she burns it. She burns it. So why does she burn it? Because everybody's Tamimet. There's no Parei Duma. So how do we do this halakha today? Especially how do we do it on Yom Tov? How do we do it for Matzot? Well, nobody's really baking on Pesach and Matzah, but it is allowed. And so therefore what you're allowed to do is you're allowed to bake it, then you're allowed to separate it. You're allowed to separate it, and you separate it at the end, and then you throw it in the garbage, and you burn it after Pesach. So if you are baking matzot on Pesach, what you do is you bake, and you take one full matzah for many, many matzot. You're going to make it as challah. You can put it aside, and then you're going to burn it after Yom Tov. It's owned by the Kohen. Kohen's not going to get it, and we burn it after Yom Tov. People are not baking matzot on Pesach. It doesn't happen. They're working so hard. But back in the day, private people used to do it, and this was the halakha. I'll show you something very interesting in the next
On Yom Tov or on Chol Hamoed?
On Yom Tov. On Chol Hamoed, there's no problem, because you're allowed to bake. The whole problem here is, I have dough, which is tummy. Well, I can eat dough, which is tummy. Every bread you eat is tummy. We're all eating instead of tumah. Truma, even a Kohen is eating instead of tumah. That's why he can't go in the Harabayit. That's why he can't do all the korbanot. Now, but the dough I have itself, but I have to give a piece to the Kohen. That's no problem. If it's a regular 2 weeks before Pesach, no problem. I take this dough, like you make your challah every week. Your wife takes challah, she takes it, puts it in tin foil, and she burns it. Why? That's it. So there's no problem to bake matzot 2 weeks before Pesach and takes the challah and throw in the garbage. However, if I'm baking on Pesach, if I'm baking on Yom Tov, then I have a problem, because you can only bake what you're going to eat. So if I separate it, it's tameh. Now I'm going to give it to him. Can you bake it? No, they can't bake it because you can't eat it. So what are you going to do? Leave it? It's dough. Dough is going to ferment. It's going to grind. It's going to become chametz. So what do? Make the matzot and break a piece off after. You're allowed to take from the challah after having baked. Whether it's by the way, if you get to a place and you buy it, and you come to a place of bread and you say, I don't know if this family, no, everything's kosher. We did you everything kosher, but you didn't give challah. You didn't challah. So what do? There's ways of taking the challah after the bread is already made.
You can do it even though it's not your challah, you have to take a challah?
Seems to me. Once it's you given to me to be able to eat, that's mine. You gave it to me, I'm a guest by you, gave me a sandwich.
You don't get like a full portion, you get like
so the question is, how much bread did they make? Because we're going to see now in the next Gemara, what's the shear of challah? How much dough do you need to actually have a chiyuv of challah? Maybe there's no chiyuv of challah. So maybe we're so mechal there. We're going to see that right now, very interesting. The Gemara continues. Tanya Rabbi, by the way, in Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yitzchak Amalechak ben Betera. Ben Betera have the simplest answer. Take the dough and put in cold water. I have my dough over here, separate it, what I'm Monsieur the Kohen, and you put in cold water. Cold water will stop the process of chimutz. It will not become chametz anymore. Huh?
Fridge, the same thing?
I don't think so. It seems to be cold water.
Cold water.
Dump it in cold water, everything's going to work. Let's see the Gemara, what it says next. Interesting Gemara. The Gemara says, V'kama shil isa. Okay, you know that when you're making, we said before many times that when you're kneading the dough, it can become chametz. So when you put water and flour together, that's going to come chametz if you leave it unattended. However, if you're working it, so long as you're working it, you're preventing the process of the chametz becoming. It's not fermenting. It's not going to grow. It's not going to puff, and it's not going to it's not going to grow. So how big is that? Because if it's very big, you're doing a huge dough. It's not enough energy and power to be able to touch everything that's going to prevent the chametz process. So what is the shear? So the Gemara says, what is the shear? Sorry, I just lost it for a second. Vatanya, I missed it. Where are we? Okay, v'kama shiur isa, Rabbi Shimon ben Oshen, Rabbi Yochanan ben Bruk, Amer, b'chitin kavin, 2 kavin for wheat. When you take wheat, and by the way, it's not flour yet. You take wheat, and you get a bag of wheat, and a kav is about 1.38 liters, according to Rav Chaim. Chazon Ish is a little bit more. So 2 of them is going to be 2.8. 2.8 liters of, if you take about 2.8 liters of wheat, which will eventually be turned into flour. When you turn into flour and you're working that's enough. That won't become chametz. You can't have a bigger dough.
How come we're using liters instead of grams?
Because we're saying in volume, and one.
So 2.8 liters represent how many kilos or grams?
Same thing.
Well, we don't go with the weight. We go with volume. So I'm telling you, bidafka, a liter of volume of liter. So if you take a Naya bottle and you fill it in with dough, and you do that twice, 2.8, it's a volume.
It's interesting. Here it says a kav is equivalent to 24 eggs.
Yes, 24 eggs is a cup.
So 2 kabim is 48 eggs.
2 cup means 48 eggs, exactly. Now, of course, the flour is the kernels. You're getting kernels over here. You're getting wheat berries, and then you're going to turn it into flour. So when you get into flour, you can have 2 kabin. And then, by the way, if you go to the matzah bakery, they're very miduyak. You know, it's good night to go buy the matzah over there. What happened?
I'm getting a call.
Okay, what do you want to do?
Have to. Yeah.
Pause.
You
Put
mind?
him in the shirt.